Thanks so much, Eric. I gotta say, that's probably one of the best speaker introductions that I've ever written. My grandfather used to say that a speech is kind of like the horns on a steer. You got a point here, and you got a point there, and in between, there's just a whole lot of bowl. And today, what I'm trying to do is steer you away from the bowl and get back to the truth that I experienced when I had a near-death experience. At age 17, some friends and I had gone out and decided to be very creative and have one of these frat boy parties. I was attending North Dakota State, or University of North Dakota in Williston. And I think the party went about 2 or 3, and for some reason, my roommate and I decided there was 24 beers left, and it'd be fun if we could see if we could finish that as well. Wow. How many of you have ever had a really rough night? Okay. There's a lot of people that know what I mean. And I think the maturity level at that age, at being 17, and I thought I was impervious, nothing's going to happen, there would be any repercussions from that. But I had a really valuable lesson that day, and that water is the key to life, not alcohol. And from that experience, I think it brought me to a place now today that I was able to share much more and move in the spirit. Now, if you can imagine, we're pretty well inebriated and lost control of sensibilities. And so that's why I asked the question, if any of you guys have ever had a really rough night. Because alcohol can tend to do that. You can kind of lose track of, common sense, I think. And so the more alcohol we drank, the less we had of our sensibilities. And there was a bottle of tequila, it must have been about a foot tall. And I think that's what I drank. My roommate just got sick, threw up. However, I wasn't as lucky. What happened to me is I lay down in the bed and I died. So this is an afterlife experience. The difference between, I found out later, is an afterlife experience is your spirit, that piece of your soul, a tiny spark that comes from another dimension into your physical body. It's called the spirit. And when that spirit decides to leave, and there's nobody at the helm, you die. A lot of times I like to tell people that I believe the spirit is stronger, much stronger than the physical body. Because how many people have you ever heard of? They shouldn't have been living, but they've lived through catastrophic accidents. They did autopsies on people before, and they found out that there's no way this person could have possibly functioned. Most of their organs weren't even useful. But the spirit is stronger than our physical body. Now, when I started to move out of my body, I had a lot of aha experiences. The first one was that I had floated out and I could see myself thinking, oh my God, the thinking is done outside of the brain, not up here, because my body's down there and I'm still conscious. I understand what's going on. That was the first aha moment. The other thing is that I could also see. So is it possible that the spirit has eyes, but yet I can see better than I could with my own 2 physical eyes? Now it's huge. And as I started to float up toward the ceiling, I found out I'm not really floating physically, because I just went through the ceiling and all of a sudden I'm in a completely different dimension. A dimension that many people might construe as hell, because the 4th dimension, as I was later explained that this was, is so much different than what we're used to in the 3rd dimension. And in the 4th dimension, I saw things that, I would relatively scary. Poltergeists, ghouls, goblins, I mean, all sorts of things that you'd say, well, I don't know why anybody would want to be here. And later, you know, I saw a guardian angel. And the guardian angel is there to be able to help make that transition back to your soul. And that soul is massive in comparison to what the spirit is. But as soon as I saw this white light tunnel, and I put a picture of it on my book. And that's an interesting story, because I hadn't met my spirit partner until much later in life. We've been together, Meg and I, for 15 years, and she painted this. And when I saw this, I said, that's a familiar thing. I felt like I'd come home. And later I did write a book with her help. And you notice the title is Messages from the Spirit World, not Messages from David. I didn't think anybody would be interested in my twists on what's going on, but I wanted to be able to share what the spirit guides were giving me. As soon as I went through this white light tunnel, I did go to heaven. And it's a place that's also referred to in quantum physics as the sixth dimension. It's a place where that's what is there. It's not a place where there's planets. Every dimension is so different. Every dimension has beauties and wonders, and especially going back to your soul. And it's a real magical place. For those who have ever lost a loved one, know that we all go to that place because that's where our soul is. And the minute we get back there, there's freedom from physical constraints, freedom from pain, anger, jealousy, hatred, all of those things that I was feeling, all of these emotions, just evaporated. It's hard to put into words what type of love, but if you could attach the word magnificent or endless to the word love, I think I'm getting a little closer to what I was experiencing. Now, the next thing I'd like to do is ask if there's anybody here that has ever had an afterlife or near-death experience. Okay, I see lots of people. And I don't think it's as rare as it used to be. I wrote a whole lot of information about what happened, so I won't spoil the surprise in the book. But in the book, it tells many of the dimensions that we have all lived in. We've been all things, and the most interesting thing is we've lived countless lives. I don't think you can wrap your brain around just how many lives and just how old the soul really is, or the universe for that matter. Different experiences, feel that they have so many similarities. Most of these differences are in the terminology that we're trying to find words to describe something that's so paranormal. Something that's yet beautiful, but yet it's all part of life. I always said that the biggest celebrations we have are when we're born. Oh, it's a boy. And when we die, oh, he's finally dead. But in between, there are many different timelines that we use to get there. How many people wondered, if I take this path, am I going to be doing the right thing? We live in fear of things that we shouldn't fear. In our family of origin had the fear of dying. So we're going to talk about the three biggest fears that we all have: the fear of failure, the fear of dying, and the fear of mother-in-laws. But I think the third fear is that we won't talk about that. But more seriously, the fear of dying is what our family would talk about. We don't know what there is. And my father used to say, I'm a confirmed atheist. And he was really comfortable with that until he got closer to death. And then he started to think, well, wait a minute. There's still time, maybe. I don't know. But even the fear in nothing is a fear in something. Because it's a belief. So there is no differences to say that, you can't have this fear, you shouldn't have this fear, because everybody's entitled to their own experience. And so this gets us back to the aha moment. The next aha moment I had is that we did not come here to judge one another. And at first I had a hard time with that. But when I met Jesus, and I was demanding to my father guide, I can't go back, and he was saying, well, you're not done yet. I did get to see that entity. Absolutely beautiful picture that I got just yesterday from somebody who channeled Jesus. She's sitting right here. And if anybody wants to ask Alta and William, can you send me that picture? I'm sure she'd be willing to send you what she drew. That's what I saw. I also saw light, energy. I saw a lot of things. But I was going to argue with Jesus, and I was going to say, well, you know, I can't go back. You know, there's nothing down there for me. At the time, I was ready to become a rock guitarist, entertainer. I played guitars relentlessly 6 hours a day. There wasn't any rock guitarists at that time that I couldn't master their stuff. Now I beg to differ because musicians have come, I think, full circle. And, you know, it's really humbling to see how good and intelligent and the beings coming in now, and the kids that are in their 20s, and they're so cognizant, they're so aware. You know, but this judgment thing, you know, we have struggles with this every single day. How often do you see somebody and you say, that person should get a job, that person should lose some weight, that person needs to go to school. We do make these judgments, but the important thing that Christ taught me, in just a wave of the hand, it was like telepathic transmission, an energy that just engulfs you. You know, and I wanted to, you know, I had all these questions I needed answered, and within just a wave, I'll suddenly have the answers to the questions that I was looking for. And I knew that I had work to do. I knew I had to come back. The crazy thing, and I don't know how many of you have ever thought that they would start an argument with a guru, or in my case, Jesus. I had a few concerns and doubts, but he wasn't going to listen to any of that crap. So he was gone. And there's my father guide. So I'm explaining to him, well, these are the conditions. I will go back, like I had a choice. But, you know, I don't want to look goofy, so I don't want to be brain dead from this experience. And I need a mustache so I can play in an upcoming Western. But all of these conditions I was making, my father guide said, well, you know, you came here to do this work, so, you know, I don't see that there being any harm in you being able to return the love. So that's what we're really doing in life. We're sharing each other's experience, so it's sharing the love. And everything is energy, whether it be my talk, or money, or, you know, the food that we eat, the sun that we soak up, the water that we drink. So it's nice to be selective in all those things and say, you know, I know that we have choices, and our choices can lead us toward better health. And if we take the judgment out of the equation and said, you know, everybody's entitled to their own experience, it's not for us to decide who's right and who's wrong, but to live our lives in the fullest and be able to share the best of ourselves with each one of us. And that's why I say that when we get together at conferences and things like this, it feels like I'm meeting my family again for the first time, because I know it's not the first time. I know that each one of you, your mission in life, we each have a mission, and it's unspeakably important, whether or not you've chosen to acknowledge it, or whether you're searching for that mission. It's still really important. Some of us do energy work. Some of us do healing. Some of us just want to snowmobile and drink beer in Minnesota, that's the thing. But, you know, it doesn't matter. It's not for me to judge who you are and what you're doing with your life. It's up to me to be able to bring messages, and I can empower those who are willing to hear those messages. The biggest aha moment I had is that I got to review once again, why I came here. And so, in a nutshell, they said, you're going to go get married, you're going to have children, you're going to start a business, it'll be a big business, and then later in life, you're going to make the turn. You're going to move into your spiritual life when you're ready. And they're not going to force me and say, now's the time. They're going to let me do this on my own. But I think guides are there to guide, encourage us, give us messages when we ask for it. And I really believe now, after the life experience, I got to go to the angelic realm for a little while. And the reason they did that is so that I would understand who's behind the scenes, who's orchestrating everything that's going on in our lives. And I discovered not only that we have 12 living dimensions in one dimension where all things are come from, so there's a 13th dimensional model. I found out that each one of those dimensions has three, each three dimensions makes up a realm. You've got your physical realm with 3 dimensions. You've got your celestial realm with 3 dimensions. You've got your angelic realm with 3 dimensions. But I got taken to the first dimension of the angelic realm. That's where the players here on Earth come from. And that group, you can write this down if you want. They don't have a lot of this in information, but I do have a book that explains a lot about angels that I co-authored with Lisa Olshafer, who's been one. I knew she was, but she didn't have the confidence and courage to start writing until she had more information. We were able to sit with her for the last year or so and really work on something new, a project to bring angels to reality. So I'm in the 7th dimension, and these resident angels are the ones here that are orchestrating all these things. They're making relationships happen, but they don't interfere or talk to you. I say that it's easy to distinguish between the two because angels are silent, guides are noisy. And if anybody of you have been hearing chatter, it's because guides are trying to get through to you, and sometimes they do it in audible, and sometimes they do it in just feelings. Most of us, I have found, are using the feelings or intuition, and you can call it business acumen, you can call it intuition, anything you want, psychic connection. It's all just connecting with the energies of who we are and being able to share that love with others. And it's enlightening to be able to see with the angelic realm. I didn't want to really go back and see the 8th or 9th dimension, but what they told me is that the guardians, the ones that come to collect you and guide you back through your soul and all this is guardian angels, and there's many categories of guardians, just as there is many categories of residents, and that's in the book Journey with an Angel by Lisa Olshafer. And the next dimension then would be the archangel realm, and it's the highest, and there's the fewest amount of those, and they oversee all the other angels. So the angelic realm is very interesting, it's very powerful, and if anybody's got a pencil to write this down, I'm going to give you the direct line to the angelic realm. Everything in the world is mathematical, and the direct line to the angelic realm that you can use to pray is just simply 6 digits, 722 227. That's as hard as it gets. And if you divide 722 227, and if you divide 22 by 7, anybody got a calculator? You get pi. Pi is the 6-digit code for the physical realm that we live in. Everything is based in the world in circles. And I always say that the universe is all about circular. Everything's circular. If you look up in the sky, you go, Mars is kind of a triangle tonight. No, I don't think so. And everything, even the atoms that we look at, none of those are oblong, twisted, funny shapes or anything. Atoms are round. Electrons are round. Protons, quarks, everything that my guides have told me that we haven't even come to understand is circular. And therefore the dimensions all flow in a circle. And that's why it's not saying, it's not a ladder. We don't elevate to the next level and say, now it's time to go to the next grade. This is stuff we do in the physical realm. There's no graduation. Some of us start out in a different dimension than others, and that's okay. But we can choose to incarnate in any dimension we want because they all flow in a circle. Time is circular. Physicists have discovered that there's something not exactly linear about time, because eventually we all come around to the same place. And some scientists have decided that the circular if you could divide it into years, it might be 26,540 years or something to that effect. That every so often we return in our physical time. But what I discovered in my near-death experience of only being gone for 12 hours, I must have been there for several weeks, because time really is irrelevant in other dimensions. We don't have that in the angelic realm. We don't have that in the spiritual realm. So you don't have to worry that your guides, or your father guide that spends your whole entire lifetime with you, is getting bored, because it's not about time. Time's irrelevant. The next thing that I learned besides judgment is a little story. When I was 10 years old, I was introduced to a man who had cancer, and the reason I was is because I was able to perform a healing demonstration in front of a fellow who was a psychic. My father used to go to this man all the time, and he did dowsing. He was up in North Dakota, he dowsed for oil wells. He could tell them which wells are going to hit, and at what depth they would drill to and find oil. It was just unbelievable. But we have these abilities. We're born, but we don't use our feelings. He was using his feelings. He said, David, I want to show you something. He said, you're a healer, and you should be able to heal your father. You have more energy than I do. And I thought about it. And I thought, well, doesn't everybody heal? Yes, we do. But it isn't as obvious to some as others, and some of us didn't have this mission necessarily in mind when we came here. But when my energy started to flow through a fellow that he introduced me to that had cancer, this fellow instructed me to say, whatever is coming to your mind, I want you to tell him, and don't hold back. And I said, well, he's supposed to go home and juice carrots for 6 weeks. And the guy laughed. He said, well, I haven't got much to lose. I just got back from the Mayo Clinic, and they said, go home, get your affairs in order. You've only got maybe a week, not even that, to live. I haven't got anything to lose, he said. I'll do that. And he said he felt better that day. He went home and juiced carrots. 6 weeks. He was still alive. So my father calls and said, well, how are you feeling? His name was Emmett. And Emmett said, I'm back to milking my cows. And my father said, well, do you still have cancer? He said, well, I don't know. He said, well, why don't you go back to the doctor? So he did. And the doctor said, we must have made a mistake. This was a hospital in Montana. The test results have come back negative. You don't have a trace of cancer. So the Mayo Clinic must have made a mistake. And I find that interesting because my wife, Meg, whose father was an oncologist at the Mayo Clinic for many years. They don't make mistakes. Not that I've ever seen. But the story kept repeating itself, and my father and mother thought it wouldn't be a good idea to explain this to other people. They wanted me to have a normal childhood, and I was healing cancers left and right in that area. And I went to college, I drank myself to death. Now, how many of you would go home to your parents and said, I know you spent a lot of money on me, but I went and had a party and we drank and I killed myself? So I never told anybody. I didn't tell my brothers, I didn't tell my sisters. I told my grandfather because I felt my grandfather was probably the most connected to spirit, and he would understand. And my grandfather took me from the University of North Dakota, Williston, and he said, we're enrolling you in a brand new school. I don't want you to even talk to any of your old friends. You're going to start over. You're given a new chance, and now I want you to do this right. So I got a chance to start over now. So I want to demonstrate right now. Is there any of you that have any health concerns? Could you tell me what your health concern was? Yes. Anybody else have anything? Anybody else want to volunteer anything? Yes.
Extreme high blood pressure.
Extreme high blood pressure. A lot of us do suffer that. It's we find that in the electrical body, I'm going to go back up and talk for a minute. The electrical body, when we connect with you, and why don't you come up in the blue shirt? Why don't you come up and stand here if you're willing to do a demonstration? You too. When I had my first healing, my guide said, connect with your wrist. I'm going to connect with your wrist. And there's a spot right here in the wrist that when people decide to commit suicide, what do they do? That spot? They cut it. It's a very powerful, energetic healing point. We can all do this with one another. The reason I'm doing this demonstration today is because I want to heal something rather quickly to give a demonstration, and I want you to get the energy that you're needing. Your voltage is a little low. I'm saying, on a scale of 1 to 100, we rate voltage. She's at 63 in her voltage, and normally you would run a little higher. Your amperage is also low, and it's a feeling of how much energy you've got to be able to give others and to travel around and do things. Resistance. Resistance is another electrical measurement. It's a lot like an electrical circuit panel board. The reason I'm talking during this healing is they're sending in energy as much as they can, usually starting with the heart, lungs, and liver. And most of the 3 important organs, they want to cover that first before they get to your shoulder. Okay. The next thing we're going to do is explain that heart, lung, and liver are 3 of the primary organs that it sort of runs on autopilot, but you can adjust those voltages yourself. What they do is they help you bring out that resistance, and it's a measure of how the electron moves across the cell wall. And when the electron moves from one cell to another, what it's doing is it's sharing itself with another cell in order to heal that cell. And they pass back and forth. The measure of how that electron passes back and forth is called resistance. So your resistance is at 65 on a scale of 1 to 100. And we want to boost that up for you as well. Where do you live?
San Jose, California.
And in that area, we're finding that a lot of people are running a little low on their electrical frequencies. And I don't know, it has something to do with perverse energies, the electrical energies, the transmissions, wavelengths, and everything that we got going on. Now I'm going to have you hold the mic. I'm going to work on your shoulder. One of the first things they'll do is they'll send energy into that particular area that she needs healing directly. At first they're working through organs, and then they're starting to work on the particular shoulder. We're heating up pretty good. You feel that?
Yeah.
Now, each one of us carries emotional baggage throughout our lifetime. We tend to hang on to things, and sometimes we need each other to be able to help shed that. I'm going to just do a quick demonstration of what that is. We're done here. Okay, this is a very short, quick demonstration of something we can do. What are you feeling now?
Good. I feel the energy coming from.
And once I connect, it's really my guides connecting with your guides, and they're going to continue to connect. They just use me for a facilitator now to help you. Now we're going to work on you next. But hold on, I got a special present. For coming up here on stage and being so brave, I'm going to give you a cup. Meg is my assistant in healing, always has been, and I'm going to have her come and help as well. You hold the mic, and I want you to put her hand on her shoulder. You have diabetes?
And severe osteoarthritis.
Osteoarthritis.
Yeah, the cartilage is totally
I did have this, and what the guides are telling me right now is that there's something called OsteoBiflex. You can get it at any pharmacy, but there's one preparation that they make that's got Knox gelatin in it. You know what Knox gelatin is? You can literally regrow on your own, but we're going to send the frequencies in. They're going into the electrical body. They're going back to an age when you're about 23 years old, and they're seeing what it looks like then. And they're going to return some of those circuits to that age lifetime.
So they're just going back in time and rewiring you electrically before then. I just want to mention a lot of what David's doing is working on the electrical body. Oh, you can't hear. Okay, what David's doing is working on the electrical body. And often his guys will say that it's like circuit breakers have been flipped off, and now they're just flipping them back on. And a lot of the healing, do you want to sit down? Yeah, I'm sitting. Sometimes we're doing a lot of energy shifting. It's nice to sit.
Okay, now we're going to send healing right into her knee. This is the type of work I've done now for 45 years. I got a little bit too ambitious. I went to a terminal ward when I was 19 years old, and I knew I'd come back to do healings, and I thought I got to help these people. So I asked the nurse, the head nurse at the station, would I be able to go in and talk to each person as criminal and maybe help them do healing on the healer? And she said, sure, I don't see any harm in that. So I went from room to room and I explained what I was there for. And I said, I'm here because I don't want you to be here, I want you to be healed. And if you'd let me, I can send a little healing energy. And most of them were very receptive at that point. A week later, I get a call from the university professor. And I thought, oh, maybe they want me to come volunteer and do some more healing. So I returned at he requested me to come at a certain time during the day. I showed up right around noon. I go into his office, and he says to me, I understand you were here performing healings on some of my patients. And I said, yes, I was. And he said, I'll tell you one thing. If you ever step your foot in this hospital again, I'll make you wish that you never had been born. So, I was a little bit distraught. And I walked back into the same head nurse, and I went to her. I had tears in my eyes, and I asked that nurse, I said, what did I do wrong? I don't understand. I've come here to help people. And he says, she said, well, David, everybody in this terminal ward checked out 3 or 4 or 5 days later.
The guides told him, don't offer your healings randomly. We will direct the right people to you. Wasn't it something like that?
Yeah, and it's hard to know that there's such resistance in our society. We've come here to be of service to one another, and it's not about the greed, it's not about the money. When I made the turn, I went from not knowing for sure if I was going to be able to be financially secure to the point where I didn't know where I was going to spend all the money. This is what happens when you move in the Spirit. They bring the energy to you that they need so you can do their work. So, now, when I think about the things I want to do, I ask the guys, what should I do with this money? Because it's not mine. It's been given to me. It's gifts from them. And I use it to help others when they need help.
Can you tell about the superconscious mind? I'd like to maybe walk around there.
I'll walk around, see if it hurts too much.
Dave, could you explain to people a little about the subconscious mind so that they can feel themselves?
Okay. For you, I've given you one of my healing CDs. And I want you to play this CD. It has triggers that my guys have put in there. Just a quick little short story. You can sit down. And I decided that I was going to do some healing, and I named this after a city that I got the first idea to do this, is Joshua Tree, California. I went home to make a long story short, I went home to the studio and we recorded 15, 16 songs. And the production engineer said, everything went great, the music is all fine, but we have a huge problem. We're going to probably have to do it all over again because there's sounds that, we don't know how they got in there, but they're stuck in it. We're going to remove all the tracks. On Pro Tools, you can do that. You can take down every track that there is. And in these tracks, there were clicks and snaps and sounds and different things, and I said, don't take those out. Those are the triggers. They're in this tape. They were put there for a reason, and they embedded them, and they said, we don't know how they could have possibly done it, but I know that there's many miracles in this world. The fact that I'm here today is a miracle. And if there's any takeaway I have from this experience is we've come back here not to store up wealth in heaven, because you can't send it on ahead. We've come here to be of love, be of service, to enlighten one another, to love, and to get to know each other and help each other when other people need help. And so I thank you today for being a part of my journey.